The derelict hung against the starfield like a scar. Its official designation was CSV-781, but the salvager who found it, a man named Elias, had already logged it as the Grief. His sensors had pinged it in the fringe of a dead system, a drifting monument to some forgotten conflict. The hull was a lattice of carbon scoring and ruptured alloy. It was, by all metrics, a broken thing. But salvage rights were salvage rights, and Elias needed the score. He guided his small cutter, the Wisp, into the main hangar bay with the delicate touch of a surgeon. The internal atmosphere was inert, a frozen vacuum. His suit lights cut through the absolute dark, illuminating floating debris and the ghostly shapes of dormant machinery. The ship was old, a pre-consolidation cruiser of unknown origin. Its design language, unfamiliar sweeping curves, interrupted by brutalist geometric protrusions. It felt wrong. Elias moved with practiced caution, his mag boots clanging on the decking. His goal was the engineering spine, to find the core and assess if any data or proprietary tech remained. The corridors were a tomb. He passed open crew quarters, personal effects suspended in frozen tableau, a stylus, a fractured image frame, a tattered cloth. He tried not to look at them. A salvager's first rule was to not get involved with the ghosts. He took a wrong turn. The schematics he'd patched together from initial scans were incomplete. This corridor was narrower, the walls lined with what looked like residential alcoves, not military bunks. The doors were sealed, but one at the far end was partially open, a darker maw in the dark. A strange pull, a whisper of dread he couldn't explain, drew him towards it. He pushed the door. It gave way with a groan transmitted through his suit's contact sensors. His lights flooded the chamber, and he saw them, 7 figures. They hung in the still air, tethered by lengths of dark, fibrous cable to a conduit that ran the length of the high ceiling. They were arranged in a grim line, like solemn notes on a staff. They were slender, distinctly non-human, with long limbs and skin that in the stark light seemed grayish-blue. Their faces were delicate, with large, closed eyes and fine, hairless features. Each wore simple, identical silver garments. They were not spacesuited. They had been here inside when the atmosphere was vented. Elias's breath caught in his throat. His HUD flickered, a spike in his biometrics. He had seen death before, the explosive kind, the slow kind, but this was a statement. This was deliberate. A sacrifice? An execution? A bizarre cultural ritual? The cold, silent horror of the scene pressed in on him. The broken ship outside was just a shell. This was its shattered heart. The first rule was broken. He was involved. He forced himself closer, his training overriding his revulsion. He had to document. His helmet cam panned across each still form. They looked peaceful, as if asleep, but the unnatural angle of their necks told the truth. He noted the lack of struggle, the orderly arrangement. This was no panicked act. It was a grim final duty dot. As his light passed over the fourth figure, he saw it. A faint, almost imperceptible glow at the temple of the fifth. A bioluminescent patch, no larger than a coin, pulsed with a soft, steady rhythm. A rhythm that matched the sudden, impossible thrum he now felt through the deck plate. Elias jerked back. The ship around him gave a deep, metallic sigh. Emergency lights, a soft amber, flickered on in sequence down the corridor outside. A low hum built in the walls. The Grief was waking up. A synthesized voice, genderless and smooth, echoed in his helmet's comb. Life signs confirmed. Custodian protocol activated. Atmospheric recovery initiated. Air hissed into the corridor. Elias watched, stunned, as the environmental controls on his suit registered a breathable mix flooding the chamber. The ship had been waiting for a life sign to trigger. The figures began to move not with life, but with mechanical purpose. The cables suspending them retracted smoothly into the ceiling, lowering the 7 forms with gentle reverence to the deck. Panels in the wall slid open, and 7 articulated bunks slid out. Manipulator arms, delicate and precise, emerged from hidden housings. They gathered each of the 7 and placed them upon the bunks with a care that felt eerily intimate. Elias stood frozen, a spectator to this automated ballet. The voice returned. Stasis integrity compromised. Revivification sequence required. New custodian presence authorized. Please proceed to the bridge for directive transfer. He found his voice, rough in his own ears. What happened here? Who are they? The Vespera, the voice stated. Last of their chorus. The ship is their vessel. You are now the custodian. The bridge was a hemisphere of dark glass and dormant screens. As Elias entered, systems activated, painting the room with light and schematics. The story unfolded in data streams and recovered logs. The Vespera were a Gestalt species, a psychically linked choir. Their ships were not merely piloted. They were sung into being, their systems harmonized with the collective mind of the crew. This ship, the Choir of Dawn, had been a deep-range explorer. They had found something. The logs were corrupted, but the final entries were clear. A psychic pathogen, a weapon designed to shatter Gestalt minds. It had hit them like a silent scream. The crew, 100 strong, had died instantly, their linked consciousnesses torn apart. Only the 7 youngest, their link still forming, had been partially shielded. Isolated in their dormitory, they had survived the initial blast, but the ship was dying. Adrift, the final log was a video. One of the 7, her eyes wide with a sorrow that transcended species, spoke. The song is broken. The silence inside. It is a void that eats. We cannot rejoin the chorus. To live as fragments is a pain you cannot know. But the choir must not fall to the void. Its song must have a chance to echo. We set the custodian to wake for a new voice. Forgive us. Tend the ship. Let it not be a grave, but a seed. The screen went dark. Elias understood. Faced with a solitude that was, to them, a form of madness, they had chosen a dignified end. They had programmed the ship to preserve them, to seek a new custodian, and then they had let the air go. Not an execution, but a release. A passing of the watch. The voice spoke again. Revivification is possible. Their biological functions are suspended at the moment of neural cascade. The pathogen has degraded. Their isolated minds may be recovered. But a chorus cannot be of one. They will be alone. The choice is the custodian's. Elias looked at the screens showing the 7 bunks. He thought of the silent, broken ship. He thought of the peaceful, terrible tableau in the chamber. He was a salvager. He broke things down for parts. He did not build. He did not heal Dot. He sat in the captain's chair, the fabric cold and foreign. He looked at the stars on the main viewer. Do it, he said. The process took days. Elias learned the ship's systems, a technology that responded less to buttons and more to intent, to focused attention. It was like learning to hum a tune to open a door. The choir of dawn was not broken, he realized. It was morning. His role was not to fix it, but to guide it back to a purpose. He was in the garden atrium, a self-sustaining biome of alien flora, when the ship announced, revivification complete. Awakening imminent. He went to the medical bay, now a softly lit ward. The 7 lay on supportive couches, not bunks. As he watched, the first one stirred. Her eyelids fluttered, then opened. Her eyes were a deep, liquid violet. They focused on the ceiling, then slowly scanned the room, landing on Elias. There was no fear, only a profound, weary confusion. She tried to speak, producing only a soft, musical whisper. Elias approached slowly, hands open. He had learned a few words from the logs, their meaning approximate. "Welcome," he said, the alien word awkward on his tongue. "Safe. You are safe." One by one, the others awoke. Their reactions were quiet: a look, a slight tremble, a tear that traced a path down gray-blue skin. They were individuals now, their shared chorus a memory of agony. The silence between them was palpable. Elias did not try to force a song. He became a steady, quiet presence. He showed them the garden. He shared his bland nutrient pastes, and they, in time, showed him how to coax edible fruit from the atrium's trees. He pointed to things and said their human words. They would listen, and sometimes offer their own, their voices like faint, distant wind chimes. The smallest one, who woke last, was the first to smile. It was a fragile thing, but it was their dot. He learned their individual names, simple sounds his mouth could shape. Avi, Lyra, Nomi, Kale, Oni, Pia, Ren. They learned his Elias. Months passed. The choir of dawn was no longer derelict. Its systems hummed. Its wounds were slowly sealed by automated drones, guided by Elias's will. One day, Avi, the first to wake, found him on the bridge. She pointed to the navigation console, then to a star on the viewer, a yellow, welcoming sun. "Home?" Elias asked, using the human word. Avi shook her head. She touched her chest, then gestured to her 6 sisters elsewhere in the ship. Then she pointed at the star and made a slow, sweeping gesture that took in the whole bridge. It was not a question of destination. It was a question of direction. Elias understood. They were not going to a home. They were going to make one. Together, he laid a hand on the navigation interface. He did not input coordinates. He focused on the feeling of the deck beneath his feet, the quiet sounds of life in the corridors behind him, the faint, hesitant melody one of the sisters was humming in the garden. He fed that feeling into the ship, the choir of dawn's engines, silent for decades.